Hey everyone, Mark Edward Willows here. Welcome once again to Gabbin Cabin. And I have a very special and a fascinating guest joining me on the show today, Mr. Scott Valentine. And you're probably saying, wait a second, I think I know that name. Well, if you are a fan of the 1980s sitcom Family Ties, Scott was one of the stars of the show. He played Nick Moore, who was Justine Bateman's boyfriend on the show, and he had a fascinating career in Hollywood. Scott, welcome to the show.
Mark, thank you kindly. Appreciate it.
I need to ask you, Family Ties, it's such an iconic show. First question, what was it like to be on that program?
You know, I always told Gary Goldberg, the guy that created the show and executive produced it for years, I said, you spoiled me. You made me think that the rest of Hollywood was like this. It was truly a family atmosphere. There were very, very, very few shows that you do. I had done theater for years in New York prior to getting on the show, had done a lot of television and movies after the show. There were only maybe a very small handful of experiences that compared to it. Yeah, there were times that, like any family, you get on each other's nerves. That happens. But it was nurturing, it was growing, it was loving, it was fun. And you got paid a bunch of money to go and play. So it was wonderful.
And you worked, of course, with Michael J. Fox. What was that experience like? I mean, the first time you saw him, were you in awe, or were you real professional and just walked right in and did your job?
I didn't really know of Michael. I didn't know of the show at the time. I had moved from New York and had only been out in LA for 10 months. And I was so focused, I didn't watch TV at the time. And I was so focused on get a job, get a job, get a job. I was run over by a truck in New York City years prior, and I could not get hired in New York. I was hit, run over and dragged, died, was paralyzed, came back from all that, tried to work in New York, and that culminated with a casting director. It was a movie with Robbie Benson and Paul Newman, and it was about maybe the seventh or eighth callback on that movie, which it was down to me and one other guy. And at the end of the audition, the casting director said, don't you have fake parts? Aren't you like a tinker toy? You can't hire him. He's going to fall apart on the set. And I jumped up on the coffee table and I was like, I can fly, I can surf, I can, and they all looked at me like I was crazy. And I thought, damn, I got to get out of here. I got to leave New York, because New York for the entertainment industry is pretty much a small
small
community.
Mecca, you could say. Yeah, it's the theater district.
Yes. And, there is television, there is film, but everybody knows everybody else's business in all the mediums. So then I moved to New York, or to LA, where nobody would know about the accident. And for 10 months, there were some weeks I think I had 20 auditions in a week, and was dead focused on just getting a part. So when I got the part, and auditioning for it, my agent had to tell me, this is Michael Fox. He's got the #1 movie in the country. He's got the #2 movie in the country, which I had not seen either one of the movies at that time either. And so when I met him, it was not like, it was just, he was very gracious, very kind, very welcoming, as was Meredith, as was Michael Gross, as was Tina, as was Justine, as was Gary and Michael Whitehorn and Alan Huger and the other writer-producers. It was very much a family atmosphere. Michael didn't have that, I'm the king, so you got to kiss my tuchus.
Right. Yeah, no, he's a very nice guy.
Yeah, very nice guy.
Now, what was the audition like for Family Ties? Did you walk in? Did you audition with one of the actors? What was the audition process?
No, the funny thing is, I'll always remember this. You've been to LA, right?
Oh, yes. It's my second home.
Okay. The Paramount lot.
Yeah, I've been to the set of Family Ties. I was there for an episode. It was the episode with Meredith and Michael in the Lamaze class. That was the episode that I was there for. And also, I'll tell you a story a little later. I met Michael. I got my story all about him and everything. We had front row seats on the bleachers for the show. Yes, I'm very familiar with the atmosphere of Family Ties.
So the entrance, they bring the audience in. I don't know if you remember that. There's a
Mhm.
little street, kind of like an alley.
Yes, yes.
If you continued north on that, there's another entrance where when you come to audition, typically you go through that entrance on Gower Street, not off
Mhm,
of Melrose, not through the
mhm,
big gates that we've seen for years on
mhm. The famous
Paramount
arches.
films. Exactly. And walking through that, and then you walk into literally the stage we were on right north of it was a yard.
Mhm,
And eventually that building next to that yard, Gary Goldberg got the studio to make it a daycare center, which was wonderful. When I had my children, I was able to. I didn't have them. My ex-wife did, but when my children were born, I was able to bring them to work with me and have them be in the daycare to the side. But there's that yard, and just north of the yard is where Gary's office was, and that's
mhm,
where the audition was. And there was guys hanging out in the yard, and then other guys in the like waiting area. Um, and then you went into the office, and you walked in the door, and you're standing right here, and there's Gary at his desk. There's another producer sitting next to him. I think it was Alan Uger, and over here was more producers sitting on the couch. Um, so it wasn't really a large room, and
mhm.
sometimes they're not. Um,
They're just little like bungalows.
a bungalow, but oddly enough, Gary's office used to be Lucille Ball's dressing room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
boy.
when I found that out, I was rather just in awe, because loved Lucille Ball. What a
Mhm,
talented person.
mhm,
Um, and going into the audition for the first time, you're always nervous going in, and there's always that weird dichotomy between you want to be gracious and you want to be kind to the people giving you that opportunity to allow you to come in and share your living art with them.
mhm,
But at the same time, you want to show enough of the character. I've gotten myself in trouble going into auditions and being kind and gracious and auditioning for a killer or a whatever
mhm,
homicide, and then hearing feedback to my agent. I'm going, well, he was so nice. I don't know if he can play a killer. So
mhm.
let me ask you, do you only hire psychotic killers to play
Yeah. Do
psychotic
you want me
killers?
to walk in with the knife in my?
Should I walk into the room and act like a complete ass, or I don't? And there are people that do that and they maintain that persona. I think there's one thing is who you are as a person, and then there's the character over there. They're two separate individuals. So going in, I was nervous, and there's Gary at the desk. Um, and the funny thing is, the character made art out of garbage.
Mhm.
Um, I literally, at the time, had friends and still am friends with one of the people that made art out of garbage and sold it for a lot of money. It's funny what people will pay for garbage.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you remember one of the lines in the scene of the initial episode I was on. The father says to the mother, Elise, our daughter's dating Rambo.
Oh,
So
I actually do remember that. Yes.
So I thought, well, there has to then be it would be easy to adapt that New Yorkism, that New York regionalism for speaking sort of Stallone-esque.
Mhm,
Um, and then the whole thing they make comment in there about leather jacket and all that. So I had a leather jacket on and the boots. Um, so going in and initially doing the scene, and it was funny. Gary Goldberg always said, and he said this well after he had a book that he wrote and came out, and there was a whatever premiere party for it or something, and he had a question answer period with different folks that had been different characters and shows that he executive produced. Some from Spin City, some from what was it,
mhm,
Day by Day, I think,
mhm,
or
mhm,
um, and he had said in that whatever that the thing I can't think of what it's called where people sit and ask questions and they're in the audience. And he said it was always, he said, I thought hard for Scott because he's coming into a new situation and he's playing a character that everybody hates, that
mhm,
everybody is not to like,
mhm,
except for one person. So that's a very difficult position to put yourself in. So going into the audition and knowing that this character is somebody who everybody hates, everybody doesn't like. And I was nervous. I was my speech and mannerism was very staccato and maybe monosyllabic. And then Gary, after doing the scenes, obviously he thought there was something there because me as a producer, when you have people come in to read for you, if they're not the right person, not to say they're not talented, but if they're just not the right person,
Just not right for the role.
and you don't want to waste your time, you want to get on to the next.
Sure.
You want to cast this part, solve that problem, move on to tackle the next
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
And there was a room full of guys waiting, as I said, outside the door. There were guys outside in that yard area, walking back and forth, holding their lines up.
Just like a
Yeah,
typical audition.
right, as actors do. And he started asking me about where I was from, and telling him New York, telling him what I told you about friends that made the art out of garbage. We started because he's from New York, and we started talking about different elements, different aspects of New York. And then I rather rapidly got very comfortable with him and felt very at ease. And that was a great thing about Gary. Gary, he was not an emotional person. He was
Mhm.
not prone to fits and outbursts of
Mhm.
petulant, vociferous displays of
Mhm.
emotion. And I think a great thing that he did, as all great coaches, as all great managers, as all great producers do, you try to instill comfort and warmth and confidence in the people beneath you.
Mhm.
And in that moment, looking back on it, was very much him trying to instill warmth and comfort and yada yada.
Mhm.
Um, so I remember leaving and going back out through the Gower Gate, and it always sucks because everybody always says, "Oh, that was great. That
Mhm.
was lovely, Mark. Thank you for coming." Oh, okay, next.
Yeah,
And you want to say, just tell me the truth. Did I suck? Was I good? Just,
exactly.
tell me
And
what.
let me ask you, Scott, how do you think you did during that audition? When you walked out, did you think, God, I sucked, or did you think, God, I nailed this? What was your reaction?
I didn't know.
Oh,
I didn't know, and you never know. There are times you audition and you think, "Oh man, I sucked. I just totally just laid a plop of manure."
yeah, and that's the role you get.
And then you get home and your agent calls, "You got it."
Yeah,
What? I suck.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Um, and remember, in those days, we're talking 1985. Yes, there were cell phones, but they were not as prominent as they are now.
Mhm.
Um, and even if you had one, if you're lucky enough to have one, which I think, after getting on the show, I got one of those that looked like a suitcase in the console
Oh,
of the
yes, with the
car.
bag on the back. Huh?
um, didn't have that, and I remember I can't remember if I went to my agent's, who was in West Hollywood, or back to my apartment, which was in West Los Angeles.
Mhm.
But I think I went back to my apartment in West Los Angeles and got a call from my agent, who was my first agent ever. And when I was looking for an agent, my prerequisites were to find a gay Jewish man.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the power players in Hollywood at the time, there was a very big gay contingency and there was a very big Jewish contingency. And
mhm.
Mikey was very, very pretty gay.
Oh, yeah, see?
The eyes, the hair, the everything. And I think, to my recollection, Mark, and I'm not certain this is 100%, I got uh, back home and I think there was a call and it was like, Doll, they loved you. They loved you. They want you to come back. Okay, Doll, you must have had fun. Oh my God. Oh my God. Doll, you did great. And I knew I would go in at times and just completely suck. And he'd call and go, Doll, you did wonderful.
Mhm.
Mikey, Mikey was my agent when I got run over by the truck. And
Wow.
Mikey stuck by me like blood, like family.
Mhm.
He was
Mhm.
he was and is a phenomenal human being. We are still friends to this day. I met
Mhm.
him in 1980 or 81, so we're
Mhm.
going back 41 years. He's
Mhm.
just God, I'm getting old.
Oh, well,
Um,
aren't we all?
just a great guy. Um, and I remember I went back a couple days later for a callback, and you know what? I can't remember. I can't remember if I went to his office after, because when I went back to the callback, uh, the yard, the room, it was not full of actors. I think
Wow.
I think there was maybe one guy,
Yeah.
maybe two, maybe one,
Mhm.
and me. Um, and went in. I was like, okay, you guys want anything different? Any change? They're like, no, do it just like you did. Do it. That was
So
it.
that was kind of an indication you got the role too, just by not seeing anyone there. It's like, wow, they wow.
Well, it certainly, you knew you were one of the two or three, and that typically happens. I've gone
Sure.
to auditions where, and we've done it too. You look at 100 people, you narrow it down to maybe 10, then you
Mhm.
narrow those 10 down to two or three, and you have them come back and you work with them because
Mhm.
you want actors to do their best. You want actors to know. The funny thing is, Mark, as a producer, and seeing actors come into audition, and I go and I speak at colleges and speak at acting schools, and we're going to our new company, Red Coral Universe. It'll have its own OTT. We'll
Mhm.
have our own programming. We'll have other programming that we're getting from other sources. But part of it also is we have a boot camp for filmmakers and a boot camp for actors. When you go to acting school, I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I graduated with Annabella Sciorra, with Stuart Zelli,
Mhm.
with oh goodness gracious, I can't think of his name right now. He's going to kick my ass from not remembering. Um, but another very lot of people from our class were successful. Went on. That class initially was, I think, 230 people,
Mhm.
and by the final year, it was whittled down to 32 people, and that's what graduated, was 32. So, but what they never teach you is sort of the business of acting.
Mhm.
They don't teach you, if you were lucky enough to become successful, how do you manage your money? How do you manage your agent? How do you
Mhm.
manage your manager? You're a business person, you're a commodity, and you have to know how to
And
protect that.
yes, and that's very true. I think most people do not realize what a business it is.
No,
They don't think of the business aspect. Show business is. Someone just asked me the other day something about Hollywood, and that was my answer. I says, listen, I've seen a lot. It's a business.
it's
And
a business.
it's a business that's run, and you need to know how, because you, as the actor, that's your business. Today, the name is also called brand, as you know, but that
Yeah,
is very, very true. And you do need
yeah.
to know how to handle things.
So, uh, where was I? Gary. Oh, knowing if I got the part or not. Oh, actors when they come in to audition to do. There's 100 of them, and out of the 100, 80 are they're okay. They're
Mhm.
not bad. They maybe could be a little bit better. Maybe they could be a little bit, hanging on less to the words and more the moments in between the words. Um, because I think a lot of life is not what is spoken, but what is unspoken between the words speaks volumes.
Mhm.
And so that 80% aren't bad. Or maybe they're just not, we're looking for an orange and they're an apple. Or,
Mhm.
or they're a kumquat. They're not the orange. We're looking for a mandarin orange, something. There's 15% that really just, you want to say to them, you know what, I don't think you're ever going to make it. I don't think you're ever.
Mhm.
I just don't think you're cut out for this. So maybe you should look into becoming, I don't know, an agent, a set designer, an insurance salesman, whatever.
Veterinarian.
And then there are 5% that have that je ne sais quoi, that
The
have that some.
famous line, je ne sais quoi. That's what it takes to that business. And some of my friends will tease me. They say, well, I think I'm missing the quoi. We laugh a lot.
Well, and I always use the example of filmmakers. You look at Oliver Stone, you look at Quentin Tarantino. You may not like their politics,
Mhm.
you may not like their personal demeanor, and you may not like their films. But one thing I will say always definitively, they have a take.
Mhm.
They take a chance. They take a shot. They
Mhm.
do it. And there are actors that come out of the gate and they get a little bit of success and they build upon it, and they play that same role from when they're 20 to when they're 80. Clint Eastwood
Mhm.
does the same friggin' thing every time. It's still the same rogue, badass loner that he played in those spaghetti westerns is what he plays in movies now. And God love him. He's made a gazillion dollars doing it. He's made a business out of it. He's become a somewhat, I guess, a politician because of it.
Mhm.
And you're locked into that. That isn't something that I wanted to do. And the American system really doesn't allow you to step outside of that.
Mhm.
There are very few actors that can step outside of that. You look at Philip Seymour Hoffman. a chameleon. You look at somebody and then go, well, a pretty boy's got to play pretty boy and debonair guy because his audience identifies with pretty boy, debonair guy. And if he doesn't do that, he's going to alienate his audience. Then the product doesn't sell. Then the studio or the network won't hire them. Everything affects everything else. But somebody who's very pretty, very talented, and be able to play quite a menagerie of characters is Brad Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely talented,
Excellent in everything he does.
Can go from drama to comedy to a suspense thing, and is always, you look at his early films to his later films, it's always comfortable on camera. Vincent D'onofrio is another one, extremely talented guy. So there's very few. Meryl Streep, an extremely talented woman. And there are some actors that do what they do, and they do that well.
Mm-hmm.
They do, Stallone the badass, Schwarzenegger the badass, Bruce Willis the sulking, quiet Mr. He does that great, and they've made a gazillion bucks off of it. But for me, it was always, the theater aspect of one production you're playing the king, and the next production you're playing the pauper. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also, not to get off the subject, but I laugh how you refer to the studio as the yard. You know what? That's very true. The very first time that we were there, and I was with my parents back then at the time, I always remember walking in and my mom says, we can't be in the right place because it was the way it looked, just like you saw like an alley or something.
Yeah. And people...
Okay, Scott, obviously doing Family Ties and playing Nick has brought you some notoriety. Now, I mean, the cover of Playgirl magazine. Tell us a little about that and how all that came about. What was that day like?
The things we do, lad. Mind you, I am not naked in there, okay? Not naked.
Hear that, ladies?
I was supposed to be on the cover at the time. My publicist, a woman who passed in the past year, 2 years, very wonderful woman, Nancy Ryder.
I know her real well.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
Very sad that she passed, but actually, long story short, and I'll tell it to you, she is the one that introduced me to Michael J. Fox.
Nancy was a sweetheart, and she became my publicist because she was Michael's publicist.
Right.
I was supposed to be on the cover of, I think, People. And they nixed me and put that gal Madonna on the cover. And I got like a little box up in the corner or something. It was People or Us, I can't remember. Nancy was livid. How do they do that? I knew nothing of that aspect of the business. Excuse me. And then called a couple of days. I got you another cover. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, but it's gonna be great. It's got big circulation. Okay, Playgirl. Okay. I'm not getting naked. No, you don't have to get naked. Okay. And actually, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do. I had at the time not only a large following of young and older women, but a lot of homosexual males. And remember, the gay community has a very big pocketbook, a lot of income that they can dispense upon frivolous things like entertainment. And I thought, no big deal. I'll do it. So Market has provided years of laughs. I have 4 sons. And them finding the magazine and then showing it to their friends when they were teenagers. And look at my dad.
I was just gonna say, Scott, how do you tell your sons, hey, Dad was on the cover of Playgirl?
Oh, please. They found it. Remember, we're in the age of the internet, brother. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And it was fodder for the cannon for them to more joy and busting Dad's chops. But the funniest story of it, when I lived in LA, I owned Saabs. I loved the vehicle Saabs. And they've since stopped making them. That was a big a big bungle on GM's part, and but that's a whole other subject. But anyway, I would buy them only because there was a gentleman, Robert Grzybowski, his company. I'm giving him a plug out in LA. Two guys from Sweden would work on the cars for me. Robert's as honest as the day is long. And I went in one day to pick up my car, and he's got another car up on the rack. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" "Oh yeah, man. I'm really just 1 second. Let me finish this here, okay, man. I didn't fix this car. I get your car for you, okay? Hey, in the meantime, look at this magazine. Look at this girl on this magazine, huh?" And he hands me a magazine with the pages folded back like it's a tablet.
Mhm.
And there's some picture, I don't know, some skanky looking broad. I'm looking, and I'm thinking in my head, God, Robert must be desperate. This is a really like ugly looking white trashy woman. What the, you know? Oh, but I'm like, Robert, what? He goes, oh man, now look at the chick on the next page. She's great.
Oh,
And I turn the page, and it's the first page of the story that I did for. It's the Playgirl, the one that I'm in. And I open it and I look at him. Oh, and all the guys in the car fix it place all start laughing and pointing at me. They thought they had the biggest time busting my chops.
oh, my, that is the story. Now, Scott, let's speed up the years a little bit. What is Mr. Scott Valentine up to today? You still are, from what I understand, in some aspects of the business yet? Tell us about it.
Well, Mark, I actually got sick of the business around 03, 04. I went from acting to producing, and I did that because I had a business manager that stole about $1 million from me, of which I still had to pay the taxes on.
Yes,
That was
typical Hollywood, huh? Be careful.
He got arrested, went to jail. I never got the money back,
Yeah,
but I still had to pay the taxes.
yeah.
um, and that just left me in a terrible position to audition. So I started producing because going into auditions desperate is the worst thing to do. And
Mhm.
I started producing, and my last production deal was at Madonna's company, and that was a bastion of ineptitude.
Mhm.
The whole film television division was just totally. I'm trying to be nice and not use expletives. It was inept, dysfunctional. Um, and I said, "You expect to feed your children this way, Scott? You're a fool. You're
Mhm.
a fool if you stay and you associate with people that are during the middle of the day trying to do business, going out and getting drunk and doing coke.
Mhm.
You're a fool." And I sent my letter of "see you later, out of here." Formed an investment banking firm. That one we switched around and then formed another one, and we've gone on and have been integral in financing, structuring financing for renewable energy facilities, ethanol, biodiesel, solar, some real estate deals, pharmaceutical, and I wanted nothing to do with the entertainment industry. And then about 5 years ago, I met this guy, Larry Maestrich. Larry had a company back in the 90s called the Shooting Gallery. It was a production and then eventually a distribution. They had their own distribution arm. Their first big break was Sling Blade, um, which won an Academy Award. Another film they did, what was it? You Can Count on Me, won an Academy Award.
Mhm.
Larry has produced and or distributed over 140 films.
Wow.
Larry's a smart man, uh, very talented. He's a single dad. When we met, I was a single dad. I was raising my four sons. He was raising his three kids. And we sniffed each other like a couple of dogs in the yard for a year and a half, 2 years, because we both had been schnookered.
Sure, sure.
And he had been schnookered and very distrustful of people getting into business with him. Um, Me and my partner, we have worked with Interpol, the FBI, and the SEC in putting people in jail. Uh,
Wow.
People say there's so many scumbags in Hollywood. Yep, and there's scumbags in the energy industry, and there's
There's
scumbags in the real
scumbags
estate
all over, just in
everywhere.
general.
There's
Yeah.
scumbags at McDonald's. There's
Oh,
just
yes,
people that,
absolutely.
that just want to try to get over. Which some of them I've said to them, Bobby, Danny, Joey, different guys that we worked with the government, put them in jail. You're a smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do this. If you played within the lines, you would win.
Exactly, exactly.
You may make millions or tens of millions, not the hundreds of millions you thought you were going to get by
Mhm,
scamming people,
mhm,
why don't you just play within the lines?
mhm.
So, um, anyway, Larry and I met, and then about 2 years ago, we decided to form a partnership and have become partners in a business called Red Coral. We will be launching our own OTT. And for the folks who don't know what an OTT is, an OTT means over the top. For all intent and purposes, Netflix is an OTT.
Mhm.
Um, for all intent and purposes, the new Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, those are OTTs. And all OTT means is that you're able to get the content on this,
Sure.
on this that you and I are on our
Mhm,
computers, on
mhm,
our large flat screens over there that are Wi-Fi enabled either through Roku or Fire Stick or Smart
mhm.
TV. And if they choose like Pluto, I don't know, are you familiar with Pluto?
Very familiar. I watch it all the time. Pluto, all of them, Tubi, Roku, all of them you're mentioning. Hey,
And
that's the world we live in today.
yeah, and Pluto started with about 4 million bucks. They followed Ted Turner's model. You know, when Ted Turner launched TNT and TBS,
Hmm.
people laughed at him. Oh, you're gonna take old movies and put nobody's gonna watch that. What are you
Hmm.
crazy?
Hmm.
The guy's made billions,
Yes.
billions.
Yes.
And look at people when I was producing, and I remember late '90s, early 2000s when people would go to the VSDA and to the what is the electronics show out in Vegas, the electronic. I forget the
It's the
acronym.
consumer something, isn't it?
So, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came back. Remember cell phones? And the big thing was like sort of like there was what was the Berry, the
Blackberry.
BlackBerry, right? There was a BlackBerry, but it was a flip phone, and it was more and
Oh, there
more
was all kind of
how
them.
small could you get the flip phone? And I remember at that time I had an office I was renting from Lionsgate, and this guy, another company, rented in the same office suite I was in, came back. He's like, "Ah, can you believe this? They're saying you're going to get content on your phone. What a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Who's going to watch their phone?" Well, and I can tell you who the guy is, and he's not playing catch up. Okay. But the more and more Larry had in his prior company, Larry Maestrich, his prior company, he had a TVOD, transactional video on demand, and that's where you go and you same modality, but you have to pay
Hmm.
to watch the movie.
Hmm.
Um, and he and I started talking about doing content, and I said, what I've done before, and what I think we should do is we should put it on TV first, at least some of it, to create an awareness,
Hmm.
and then we'll move it over to the OT.
Sure.
But the more OTTs have taken hold, we're like, you know what? If we just have a strong enough show or shows, that will bring folks to our OTT, and that will then, by nature, folks will go, "Oh, what else is here? I like
Hmm.
this. Let me see what
Hmm.
else they have."
Hmm.
So we're in the process of having the technological aspects of that built, working.
Isn't it amazing, Scott, with technology, how it would go from television to OTT? You think it would be just the opposite. Yeah, I mean, that's the world today. It is. It's unbelievable. And I mean,
Well,
I tell this to everyone. It's you're talking in the palm of your hand, you're watching in the palm of your hand. You could get family ties in the palm of your hand. So,
well, each of my kids who are 22 to 34, they each have one of these. They each
mhm,
have one of these,
mhm,
and they each
mhm.
have one of those. And what do they
Yeah,
watch content
'cause-
on? This.
yeah, we do. Everybody's got this in front of them. There's not a person without it.
It's like our leash. So,
Yes.
and people remember when, and you're old enough. I know you're younger than me, and you don't have any gray hair like me. Son of a I hate you. I hate you.
I'll give you the
Uh,
secret when we hang out.
but remember when VHS came out,
Yes.
and people were like, nobody's gonna sit at home and watch a movie in
Listen,
their
Scott,
house.
without giving away my age, I remember when Beta came out. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. Right. And people are like, no, nobody's gonna sit at home and watch a movie in their living room.
mhm,
Well, well, they
yeah,
sit and watch it on the toilet now. So how's that?
absolutely. Absolutely.
And then also there was the whole other side of the business where people are like, oh my God, nobody's ever going to go to the theater again.
Mhm.
People will always go to the theater.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we've had a horrible year this past year because of COVID, and
Mhm.
thank God now that we seem to be getting a handle on it, and thank God we have an administration that is in charge, that is compassionate and
Mhm.
thoughtful and forward thinking, and not like the dysfunctional folks that were running the house before. And that's all I'll say about politics at the moment. I'm glad we have an adult and not a child
Mhm.
making decisions, and people will go back to theaters.
Oh,
Will,
yes.
will theaters be what they were? No. Will TV be what it was? No. Are cars what they were? No. Everything changes.
Yeah.
So, theater before where you and I growing up, and it was the big thing. Remember in town, all of a sudden they went from the one big Congress theater downtown
Yes.
to
Yes.
we got the multiplex out at the mall, which,
Yes.
which was really like sitting in a big living room with like a
Mhm.
big screen, is essentially what it was.
Right.
Uh, but everybody was like, had to go to the multiplex. There's
Yeah.
32
And
screens.
yeah, exactly. And look how television has changed. As you remember, I tell everybody Saturday night, the Carol Burnett show, you had to be there.
Had
If
to.
you weren't there, guess what? That show existed no more after that.
Well, no, remember Family Ties when it was
Yeah.
on. It was
Yeah.
Cosby, Family Ties,
Oh,
then
yeah.
Cheers, and
That
then
was the
Bing,
special
and
Thursday
then
night lineup.
Staying Elsewhere. And if you weren't there, you got one other shot in the summer to see it,
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, back when the tape recorder was the big thing. I always loved the theme song from Family Ties. I remember recording it on my cassette.
la 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 la.
Yeah, I used to love it. And I like the way it opened with the paintbrush.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, oh no, technology has really evolved. So before we wrap things up, Scott, where do you think all this is going to go? What's your thought on the future of all of this?
I think more and more content. I think part of what we're trying to catch, Mark. Remember when you could go from 35 millimeter film to 16 to 8 millimeter?
Absolutely.
And you had guys, geek friends of yours that were running around with their little
Yes.
and
My
making
dad was
movies,
one of them.
right? And I think more and more, the more that you can shoot a movie on this, you
Mhm.
can shoot a movie and you can edit it on this,
Mhm.
and you can broadcast it. You can not broadcast it, you can disseminate it to your audience on this. You don't need a big studio. You don't
No,
need a big production company. You
no.
can even do it outside of all the unions and the guilds. So I think it's going to get more and more. There'll be more division of the audience, more
Mhm.
fractionalization. We're
Mhm.
going to find very captivating. We've got some. Look out for Red Coral Universe. We've already got our app. We're going to be on Roku. We're going to be on
Mhm.
Hulu. We're going to be on smart TVs. We will be on PlayStation. We're going to be on Xbox. You can get Red Coral Universe. Red Coral Universe.
Red Coral
It's
Universe.
crazy. um, but you can get it, and we've already got young filmmakers that are making stuff that's very exciting. It's
Mhm.
very different. And we're not going to have to follow the format. Remember, it was either you made a half hour show, which was 22 minutes, or
Sure.
44, or 88. Not with programming. Look at what happened. Excuse me. We've gone from YouTube to TikTok to what's the new one now? Mashed potatoes or whatever the hell it's
Yes,
called.
yes, yes, yes.
But people will watch 30-second movies, six
Yes,
minute
they do.
movies.
I was recently introduced to TikTok and I was like, who would watch this? Well, they are. And today you have your TikTok stars and everything.
Dude,
So,
dude,
so-
you gotta be careful because you're gonna sound old. Going, well, who would watch that?
oh
Because
yeah, I know.
we're gonna sound like grandpa and grandma, and like nobody's gonna watch that.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But
watch.
you know what keeps you young? And I'm sure Scott, you will agree with me, keeping up with all of this. That's what keeps you young.
It's
I mean,
exciting.
yes, it's
It's
out there. Why
exciting.
would you not use it? I mean, look at you and I today. Here we are talking, seeing each other. All your major national talk shows, Ryan and Kelly, Ellen, the audience is in a TV
Mark,
screen and the show's going on.
I'm in New York. I can take this,
Yeah.
and literally right now, while I'm on with you, I can get my son in LA
Oh, yeah,
and have a crystal clear picture.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's unbelievable. I was talking the other day with someone in San Juan And I'm sitting at home and looking at San Juan as they're panning the camera.
I got my buddy, one of my oldest friends in the world, lives over and he splits his time between Thailand and Vietnam. Loves it.
Mhm, mhm.
We talk on
Sure.
this,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's as clear as you are to me,
yes.
and it's free. It's
Yes,
free.
I know, unbelievable. The world has changed. I tell people, as you know, back in the day, you put a quarter in a phone for 1 minute, and that was calling your next door neighbor.
Oh, and remember making those long distance calls? You'd put like 47 quarters in there, and,
Oh,
and you had other quarters in your pocket ready. You're talking to some girl, and
yes.
you're gonna hear that ching 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 ching. Oh God.
Or when you traveled, I would get to the airport. I'd get out to Los Angeles. I'd call my mom back in Chicago. Hey, I made it. I'm here. What was it? $2 something you're putting in all them course just for saying that today. And of course, today you don't even have to talk. You could type, I'm here.
Well, no, the better was, remember, like, I'm not gonna have any quarters. I'm really tight on money. Okay, so when I get there, I'm gonna make a collect call. You
Yes.
come and pick me up. When it picks up, I'll just say, "How did that?"
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's all. Don't accept it. I'll just go, "How many about?"
Yes. I had a friend that reminded me of some of this the other day. He says, remember when you didn't want to put those quarters in, you'd put them in and you would only ring the person one ring, which meant you're there, and the quarters would fall back out. Or like he said, that's our world. And today it is unbelievable. It is
Unbelievable.
really
So
unbelievable. And anyone that does not take advantage of this, I think they're crazy. You've got it. Why would you not?
and you ask me, where are we going? Look, I'm not a fan of uh, Star Wars, Star Trek, Avengers. They're not my
Mhm,
cup of tea. I like Serpico and A Man Called Horse, and
mhm, mhm.
more political thrillers are my bent. But for all my pals that are Star Trek, just love it, love it, love it. That whole deconstruction of your molecular elements and being able to transform it to another place, another time, and then restructuring it. That's where we're going.
Mhm.
That will happen.
Oh, yeah. And
Not in your lifetime, in my lifetime, but at some point
oh,
they're
yeah.
going to
And
figure out how to take this and go boop, and we'll loop into there.
yes. Oh, yeah.
Uh
You
huh.
know, getting back to like what we were talking, when you think about it now, since we have the pandemic, I mean, look at the millions of people that are no longer in offices, but yet somehow work is going on. And it's the same thing with TV, the studios, all this. Do we really need that? Think about it. All the money people are spending, like you said, with the camera. Look at the news business, Scott, how that has changed. By the time the truck comes out to cover a story, everybody's got the footage already. Yeah, I mean, say there's a fire, there's whatever, boom, you're there. By the time NBC comes out to cover this, forget it, the building's gone.
And I used to say, if you're reading it in a magazine or a newspaper, you're already 2 weeks behind.
Oh,
Okay. If
exactly.
you're reading it online, you're behind.
Yes,
You've got,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
I remember years ago, I used to be involved with the daytime dramas, the soap operas, Days of Our Lives and Young and Restless, those shows. That was the same thing. You would wait for that magazine that would come out once every 2 weeks to who's hired and who's fired. Today, the minute they're fired.
Boom.
So, yeah.
Well, Mark, I don't mean to be rude, but
Yes, we got to cut it. I could go on and on. Maybe we'll do a follow up when your company starts getting going. Let's talk more about it.
love it, love it. This has been a real pleasure. I love coming in the cabin. Although I thought there would be a fire in the
Oh,
stone, you know.
well, you know what? The fireplace is off at the moment. But as I told you earlier, the cabin is full of black bears, deer, possums, raccoons, foxes, you name it. We have it. And I'm so glad that you were able to stop by. Fascinating. All the much continued success to you, Scott, in all of your endeavors. And hey, take this technology to the limit.
Thank you, brother. Great meeting you. And yes, let's do this again. Okay.
Yes.